So the very
This conference will now be recorded.
so in the very beginning sessions, I told you that the Scala is a hybrid language. So it has been derived. It has two programming paradigms: object-oriented programming and functional programming. Okay. So the main concept of object-oriented programming is class and objects. These are two terms that are used, with respect to object-oriented programming, class and object. And what is a class and what is an object? Okay, class and object. This definition is of already you know about this about the class and object, but just let me give a quick brief all this of this class and object. A class is simply defined as what something like a blueprint of some set of a set of similar entities in a blueprint of a set of similar entities. You know how an entity is, let's say something like a car. If car is an entity, then how do we define a car? A car is defined by some of its attributes, or we call them as properties. Okay, so how would we define a car? A car is defined by its some color and some seating capacity. Okay, seating capacity and some what maybe some manufacturer and maybe some horsepower. So likewise, the many attributes are there for a car. Okay, so like this. So from properties, so we are defining. So we can define the all cars. All the cars by some attributes. And now we call this car as a class. Okay, car as a class. And I says that Benz. Okay, a Benz car. Let's say some class of Benz. It's an object. It's an object of class cars. It is an object of class cars. Next, let's say some hero. Now Honda. Let me say Honda car, and it is an object of class car. And let me some Hyundai, and even it is an object of some class. Likewise, what is the class here? It is car is a class. Okay, and these all become the objects of the class, not just only the company name here. Okay, just don't misunderstand that the company name is the object name here. No, the object, no, it's really a car that gives an object, they call as an object. Okay, so a single class. So how do we defining the class of a car is, it is defined by some properties. If you take any Benz car or any Honda car, any car, so they will have these properties. Some manufacturer will be there, some horsepower will be there, some seating capacity and some color, and some other extra attributes will be there. Okay, some price, different properties will be there. Okay, so a class and objects. This is the what you call as relation between a class and object. So a class is a blueprint of some set of similar entities, and these entities we are calling it as what? Entities or objects. Entities or objects. So we also call an object as an instance of a class. This is actually in programming. I know this instance we call, this word instance we use in programming. Okay, actually. Okay, so an instance of a class. So generally, in general terms, if we talk about an object is an entity, is a real world entity of a class. It is a real world entity of a class. So object exists, class does not exist. Class is only a definition, object is the data, or it is an entity which has some real values. Okay, which has some real value in it. Okay, so object and a class. So in programming we define object as an instance of a class, and a class is blueprint, or class is defined by some set of properties which define the set of all the similar entities. So likewise, we can just define class and an object. So there are hell number of classes and objects. Okay. Now, So any programming in object-oriented programming, if you want to write any program or any application, okay, any application according to object-oriented programming, so compulsory we have to use this class and object concept here. Classes and objects concepts. So we'll have totally classes and objects. That's it, nothing else. Okay. So if our programming involves and has only classes and objects, then we call such type of programming as object oriented programming. So how is the object oriented programming uh, is based mainly these two words, class and object, and there are some features are there some features are there, by including these only. Okay, those features are based on this class and object only, because of which a language can be called as object oriented programming language. So the basic terms are class and object, and upon this some features are built. On top of this class and object, some features are built. So those features are mainly encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, data abstraction. So still there are some features are there, but these are the main features. Uh, you know, which make a language, a language which supports a programming language supports these features with class and object. So in encapsulation we use class and object only. In inheritance also we use class and objects. So in all these features involved, are they are built on top of, or they are defined, or they are these features exist only with class and object. Okay. So any programming language that has these features, encapsulation, inheritance, polymer, data abstraction, can be called as an object-oriented programming language. Okay, object-oriented programming language. So the language that is oriented towards an object, the concept of object. That is the reason that language called as object-oriented programming language. Okay, so these object-oriented programming languages are mainly useful for developing web applications mainly. Actually, why this concept has come into picture. Before object-oriented programming, what was there? What were the programming languages? And what is that we achieved? What is that industry achieved with these classes and objects? Okay, remember, any real world entity if you take any real world entity, that yes, object programming only. Just for object programming only. Okay. Okay, any real world entity can be described with this concept of class and object. Any real world entity, whatever you have, whether it is a logical object or physical object, I'm repeating, whether it is logical entity or physical entity, everything can be described with this class and object concept. Okay, so it is mainly useful for developing the web applications and data storage, mainly data storage and web applications. Okay, so whatever all the databases we have, data storage, the data is stored. Okay, data stored somewhere in database, some storage systems, some file systems, everything that will be managed by these classes and objects only. Okay, so in today's world, data is nothing but an object. Data is nothing but, in programming, the data is maintained in as an object. So we are writing some program, Java program or Scala program or some any other program, Python program, any program, any object program language. If you want to store the data, if you want to have the data has to be held as an object only. The data must be held as an object only. Remember this point. So data is object. Object is data. That's it. Very simple. Okay. The class defines what, and object holds the data. Class defines what data has to be held, and object holds the data. That is the difference between this class and object. Okay, any real world, with object and this class concept, any real world entity. If you take any real world entity, if you tell me any real world entity, we can describe its nature or its what we call as we can define it. We can define everything, not just nature. Everything we can define by using the concept of class and object. Okay, anyone can be described with class and objects concepts. Not just only class, not just only object. Both are interrelated. There can't be any object without a class. There can't be any object without a class, and there is no meaning for a class without any object. I'm repeating the statement here. There can't be uh, an object without a class. There can't be an object without a class, and there is no meaning. And there is no meaning for a class without objects. Okay, so there is no meaning for a class without objects, and there can't be an object without a class. So this is the relation between these. So class and object, they must exist together. They work together. They exist together, and they do everything together only. Okay, and a simply class cannot do anything, and we cannot have an object without a class. That's it. Okay, so the very first thing is we need to define a class. The first thing is we need to define a class. After it, we need to have create objects. We call it as create objects of the class. This is what we do actually. Okay, define a class and create the objects for this class. And how many objects we create, that depends, and we shall see how many objects we can create, and how to define a class, and how to create an object, that we shall try to see. Is it clear, guys? The basic, I am trying to basic idea. We can get this basic information from many, in the internet you have many things, many too much information about the class and objects. You can learn from anywhere. But I'm trying to give you quick idea of what is a class and what is an object. Okay, fine. Now I will try to show you how to define a class and how to define an object and how to create object, how data will be held by that object, how we perform data, how we perform some operations on that. Okay, let's try to see all that. Okay, in Scala language, in Scala, okay, a class can be defined. A class can be defined by three keywords. We call them as given by three keywords. A class can be defined by three keywords. They are the first keyword is class, second keyword is object, and third is trait. So class, object, and trait. So don't misunderstand that the second keyword object, it is not for creation of objects. It is not for creation of objects. I'm telling you, it is for class only. This is for class only. In Scala, a class can be defined, or a class can be created. We don't say created actually. Defining class. Okay, defining class by three keywords: class, object, and trait. We don't have the concept of this object or trait in any other language. This is specific to only this language, Scala language. So we have the concept of, we use the keyword class in Java, but we don't. In addition to that keyword class, in Scala we use these two other keywords. What is the object and trait? Okay, we shall see that. What is the difference? What are the difference between these, and what is that we can do here? Okay, that is the reason. See here now, I'm opening this. This one, and if this on the package, if I try to create a Scala class here, new Scala class, you can see in the of kind, class, object, and trait. You can observe these three here. So whether you want to choose class, or whether you want to choose object, or whether you want to choose traits. So there is some difference. There is a difference in using these three keywords, but we can create. We can create either a class, or we can an object, or a trait. They, whatever the relation I told you just now. What is the relation I told you just now here? That relation, this relation, or this relation, what are the relation I told you between a class and object? That is not going to apply here. Okay, this object is different, and whatever the object that we are talking about here, that is different. Okay, so what are the object that we are discussed here about it? That is different from this object. Okay, don't get confused with that. Okay, so we create a class or we define a class by using these keywords. Okay, that doesn't mean that we are creating object here. We are creating class only. Okay, remember that point. So either we can create an object, or we can create a trait, or we can create a class. Okay, so in our class, in our all the previous sessions, what is that we have been defined creating is a class or object or trait. So we have used class or object or trait. Which one we have used? We have used object, right? Yes, we have used object. Why we used objects? No, why didn't we use class? Okay, there's the reason for it. There is a reason for it. We shall try to see that what is the reason is. But in this session, first let me go with this class. Let me say some class. Let us say some employee class. Okay, so you can see the keyword here, object. Sorry, the keyword is class here. The keyword is class, isn't it? Now, what I do is I create one object here, new scala object. So trait, we shall not include trait now. The trait it is going to come after some sessions. Just let us not discuss now. Let us try to discuss about these two for a few sessions. For most of the session we discuss about class and object. So let me create one object. Let me call as employee object. Employee object, and that is class is simply object class. Okay, this you can see this. The keyword here uses object here, and the keyword. Let me delete the previous programs. Okay, and here the keyword is class. Class employee object employee object. Okay, now what is that we can just now I told you that now this class is meant for defining the features or the properties or attributes of an employee. How to define employee? An employee will have some ID, an employee will have some name, some department, some salary, some work location, different domain area of in which domain that employee is working. There will be if the employee is defined by various properties, right? So we can use whatever all the features we want, all the properties we want to describe an employee. We can use all those here. Okay, so how do we define them? It's very simple. Let's eval name or id. Its type is integer, equal to. So in Scala programming, remember, when we create a variable, initialization is mandatory. Initialization mandatory. Try to use initialization. You try to initialize the variables. Okay, without initialization it won't accept, remember. That will also be accepted, but under special cases. Okay, but as a beginner, try to be, assign the data. Okay, that is the initialize the data. Next, val name of the employee would be string. This type would be string, right? So I simply just pass empty string. Later I can overwrite it. So in order to overwrite the data, I have to use var. No, val doesn't work here. Let me use var. Var is going to create mutable reference, right? Val creates immutable, and var creates not data type, assigning some value. This is called as simply declaration. Equal to 0. This is called as initialization. Equal to 0. Equal to something. Equal to something. That is called as initialization. Okay. And var id name. Let's say some department. Department would be string, right? Equal to simply just as we have to initialize it, just simply I'm assigning to some empty string. You can use any string, but I'm simply assigning empty. to empty it. Where salary colon float or double equal to some 0.0 some value. Okay, now after this, okay guys, so while salary, so I take only these fields, just I'm taking only these fields uh, to define an employee. It's up to you whether to use 2 fields or 3 fields or 4 fields or 10 fields. You know, in real time, in our generally in real examples, in real data, we'll have some 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, hundreds or no 100. In some cases we get 100 or 200 fields also, okay. But that's up to, that depends, you know, whether to take 3 or 4 or 100. Just for practice purpose they're taking 4 to 5, but in real time they'll have hundreds. Okay, not hundreds, some close to 100, nearer to 100, something it will be 50, 60, 70, something like that. Okay, so number of fields will be more, remember that. Okay, so here we are taking only 4 fields: id, name, department and string, and we have initialized all these variables. Okay, id, name, department and salary. Is it clear guys? Now apart from this, what is that we shall have in a class? In the class we have defined an employee, with these properties. We have defined an employee by these properties, and we can define an employee with some methods also, with some functionality, okay, with some functionality. Okay, so an object is generally in real, an object in real world is defined by some set of properties and some set of actions. I'm repeating the statement: objects in real world, okay, it is defined by some set of properties and is defined by some set of actions or functions. We call it as functions or actions. Okay, the set of actions based on which a class is defined will be defined as methods of the class. Here will be defined as the methods of the class. Okay, so this I am doing some of this def. So here I am writing an action to find the gross salary. So how much that employee salary, how much salary is calculated for that employee as gross? So how do we calculate it? Some calculation is required, isn't it? Some calculation is required for it. Not just giving the value, some calculation. How do we calculate gross salary? Basic plus some incentives and some PF, something, you know, something, I don't know all of this. So something stuff must be added so that to get the gross salary. Some incentives must be added to the basic salary. So there we get, after that we get the gross salary. So some calculation is required. So we have to define such a calculation, such computations or calculations as methods. We call this as methods. We call them as methods. So how do we define methods? df, a method to calculate the gross salary, right? You can give any name to that. So gross, I can name it. def is a keyword that is used to define a method. I think I said you that def is the keyword that is used for creation of a function, isn't it? I think that's what I said. Def is a keyword that is used for creation of a function. That's true. Whatever I told you, that is true. It also is true. That is, the functions of a class are called as methods. The functions that are defined in a class, that belong to a class, are called as methods. That's it, very simple. Okay, don't get confused. Everything is a function. Basically everything is a function. The thing is, if they belong to some class, they will be called as what? Methods. That's it. Okay, def gross salary. And what is required to calculate the gross salary? What is required to calculate the basic salary is required, right? So let's assume that this is the basic salary. I call it as some basic salary here. Basic salary. Some basic salary. Now this is going to take basic salary. 1 second. colon double. So equal to, just observe what I'm writing here. Mm, Basic salary plus some intensives, right? Intensive in the sense some HRA. Otherwise, one second, we calculate some HRA. While some HRA equal to basic salary into some 30%. Let's say 30%. So 30 by 100, what would be the value? It would be zero point 0.3, right? It would be 0 0.3, 0.3. And next, while some DA equal to basic salary into some 50%, so 0.5, let's say. And now the gross salary equal to, how to calculate the gross salary now? Basic salary, sorry, basic salary, sorry guys, basic salary plus HRA plus DA. That's it, okay. Basic salary, HRA plus DA. So this is called as a method. This is called as a method. So what is that we are doing here? This method we have defined to calculate the gross salary, provided basic salary is available. Provided basic salary is provided, then this function is going to calculate gross salary based on that. So HR is calculated to be 30% of basic salary, and the DA is for 50% of basic salary. And finally, we are aggregating all this. We are adding basic with the HRA plus DA. We get the gross salary. And what is the type of this basic salary here? The type, their data type, that is double. So obviously, if you add some double values, we multiply something, we are going to get again double. So the gross salary also will be equal to double. This is the gross salary, okay? And the type of this basic salary plus HRA plus D is nothing but again double only. That's the reason I have chosen double here. Fine, guys. Okay. So let me take only one method here. So we can define zero methods, one method, two methods, or any finite number of methods in a class. So here, how many variables we have created here? How many properties we have created? 4, right? This define these attributes. Instead of saying properties, I can call it as some attributes. So we have defined four fields of four properties of four attributes: ID, name, depth, department, and basic salary. And we have created one method to calculate what do you call it? The gross salary of it. Mm, I do one thing. Mm, okay, that's fine. Uh, Let me. Now, after defining the class, what is the next step? After defining the class, what we have to do? Okay, we have to create objects for the class. We have to create objects for the class. Once class is defined successfully, the next step, the next thing we have to do is we need to create object for the class. How do we create the objects for the class? It's very simple in Scala for creating objects, but everything should be written in. Remember, when you go to object-oriented programming, everything, whatever the code we write, that must be inside a class only. That must be inside a class only. Remember, no code, no statement. I'm telling you, no code or no state, not even a single statement can be outside the class. So try to have everything inside the class only. Any implementation try to have inside the class only. Now we need to define an object, but where do we define that object, and how shall we define, and how to handle it? Okay, see, this is what we are trying to do now. What we have to do here is do one thing here. I'm writing here something called as object. Otherwise, let me get one more class here. Instead of doing like this, let me write down one, guys. Object, employee data, def main def main, and in this we are using employee data. What is it? It's also a class, isn't it? Object employee data. This we are creating this class by using the keyword object here. Object employee data, and in that we are defining a method called as def. So a method or a function is always created by using the keyword def. Remember, wherever you have the keyword def, simply understand that that is a method. Thus blindly that is a method or function. Okay, so if anything is you know in any code, if the def you use somewhere, simply understand that it is a method or a function. Clear guys? Okay, so what is this is going to be the keyword, and this will be the name of the method or function. Main is the name of the function, is main, and in this class employee. Yes, same as in Python everywhere, same as the language is same, the concept is same everywhere. The only the syntax might be different, but the concept is same everywhere. Okay, def main. Next, so why we are using object employee object here? Why not the keyword class? And why we are using main? Remember one very simple thing. What is blind? Just for a few days. Remember, as the classes they continue, we'll understand what is the actual purpose of it. Okay, but remember that a program execution. I'm repeating the statement. A program's execution always starts with the main and ends with the main method. Let me repeat the statement again. A program execution or a project execution, a program or application or a project, whatever you call it as, that has to start with the main and should end with the main. So whatever the stuff that we have in main, that is only that is going to be executed. Remember that. Only that is going to be I'm telling you, executed. Only that is going to be executed. Okay. We'll do one thing, guys. Now I'll simply just erase this. Now just let me hide this. If I want to execute this program, generally what do we do? Then what do we do? If I want to execute this program, what do I do generally? Yeah, what is that we have been doing to execute this program? No, just we are right clicking on this editor itself. There we get the option, right, to run it. But if you see this now, you won't see that run command, run option. You won't see that run option now here. No, you won't see. If you have simply class here, you won't see any what you call as execution. That run option, you won't find it. Okay, you will have a run option only if there is a main method inside that. Otherwise, no. Remember that. Otherwise, that don't see that. That is, a code will be executed which is inside main method. That's it. Whatever we have in method, only there is going to. But what is going to happen with this? If you want, we can compile this. We can compile this, but you cannot run it. You cannot run it. So if you want to run this code, then compulsory we need to create the main method, and we need to include this execution part. How this has to be executed, that part we have to include in the main method only, then only it's going to be executed. So for that reason, here we have to create at least one main method. So that main method has to be created with this, must be inside a class. This main method must be inside a class which is created by using the keyword object. But in Java we do not use the keyword object, but in Scala we use the keyword object. So why it is used object, that I will write to you in the next session. But remember that we have to use the keyword object in which the main method has to be. We can't use main method if we use class here. This is not allowed. This is not allowed actually in Scala language. Okay, so it always this keyword must be object only. So if you try to see class house, see what, let us see what happens with this. Let us see. So here we use using class, and in that we are trying to have main method. Now, so the program execution has to start. Entire application or program or project execution itself must start with the main method. So how we now I would like to execute this part. Then how shall we execute? So that is the whatever the thing that I have related here. This is only the definition, class definition. So just a class definition doesn't make any sense. We need to create the object for the class. So how do we create object for this class? Okay, that object creation do under main methods. Create that object under main method. Then only that data is going to be executed. Okay, so how to create objects? Very simple. How to create object, guys? New. What's the class name here? What's the class name? Employee. New employee. That's it. This statement will create an object. This statement will create an object. Remember that. Okay. New employee. New employee. This is going to create an object. Object dot basic. What if we have created a class with KW object? What is KW object? Keyword object. Yeah, I'm in the process of telling you. Okay, I will tell you. Don't worry. Okay, I mean, first let me use class. What happens with it? Uh, then we shall see what to do with it. Okay, don't worry. New employee. But what we do is we can create an object like this. But instead of using this entire word every okay, let me say that no. Some ID equal, let's say 1. Next, new employee dot department equal to, let's say, big data. Next, new employee dot department ID, basic salary equal, let me say, some 30,000. It is INR, okay, Indian rupees. Next, again, new employee dot basic salary ID. Name, I think we missed a name. Let me see, some David, just something. Okay, now, and again, new employee dot, what is the method name here? Gross salary. Okay, it is printing, right? It is returning some data, right? So use println of that salary. That's it, guys. Okay, now if you try to run this, see what happens. Still we don't have that run option here. So we should see run employee data, but we don't have it. You won't see it. If right click, you should have run employee data, but you should not have that. So we can run only the code, in which we have the main method. We can run only the class name in which we have the main method. So just replace the class with object and right click on this editor now. Now you will have employee data, run employee data. Okay, so object, I will tell you why object, what does object is going, what object does, I will tell you. Okay, so run employee data. Okay, run employee data, just click on this. I think 0.0. What is it is giving 0.0? Employee salary, how much we got? What is the salary we gave? 30,000, right? Base salary 30,000, and how much we have to get the this double here? Basic salary plus HRA plus into 0.3 into 0.5. Basic salary. Sorry, we did not read the data. Employee dot basic salary. Sorry, guys. Actually, mm, second. Why we got 0? In the sense it is getting with this 0 0.0 only. Let me use one thing. 1 second. 0.3, 0.5% basic salary plus RF plus DA, and ID equal to 1. That's fine. New employee the data, that's fine. New employee basic salary is equal to 30,000, and new employee list. So do one thing here. So instead of using new employee always every time, we use something like this. Just have a reference to it. While some E1 equal to new employee, and instead of using this new employee, replace this new employee with E1. This is what we do actually. So this E1 is referring to what? An object that is created for employee class. Okay, this A1 is now referring to E1 is referring to an object created for the employee class. So E1 is a reference here, remember. E1 is a reference, remember that point. E1 name, and finally let me print here E1 dot class salary. So R1 E1. I think it has to give correctly now 30,000 into 3%, not 30%. That will some 9,000, I think. 39 plus 15. It must be 54, I think. 54,000. Let's see what happens now. Just we got now 54,000. Okay. So I have a reference to try to perform the operations with this reference. E1 equal new employee, and perform the operations like this. Is it clear here? Any questions here? Do we have any questions in this? Except this object, if we have any questions, I will clarify this. Yeah, the keyword new is used. Do not call new as a keyword. Actually, new is an operator. Even though it is a word, but that is generally simply called as operator. This new will create new of employee, isn't it? We are writing here new of new employee. That means that this new creates an object for this class. It creates an object for the class of what? Employee. This whole statement, not statement, this entire expression, this creates new employee creates an object for a class employee. Where that object will be created? That object will be created in heap memory during runtime of the program in Java memory, in Java heap memory. So that object will be created in memory. Okay, that object is referred by what? E1, a variable called as E1, a name called as class employee is mandated to be created. Class employee. You know, generally we split the data. Let's say, uh, uh, suppose if we take any organization, there'll be some set of managers, some team members, some team leaders, some project leaders, project managers, so not project leaders, project managers, tech leads, different kind of people will be there. That HRs, accountants, different kinds of people will be there. Okay, so if someone has to, an application has to be developed to maintain the data of all the employees of an organization. If some application has to be developed to maintain the data of all the employees of an organization, but do all the employees will have the same designation, same salary, and same incentives, and everything will be same or different? Obviously it will be different, right? Obviously it will be different. So all the team members, the team members will have some uniform way of treatment, the same type of treatment, and the team leaders will have some same type of treatment. Project managers will have some same similar, you not say not exactly same, similar. Okay, so here we create a class for all the team members, we create a class for all the accountants, we create a class for all the hrs, we create a class for all the project managers. Why? Because they are defined by different set of attributes. Some attributes will be common, but some attributes will be different. So generally we divide a program into pieces, isn't it? We cannot write everything in a single, single class or single what is that. So we can divide a program into pieces so that we can understand easily, so that it can be used, it can be reused, mainly it can be reused. Okay, so for that we break the program, entire program, into some pieces. How do we break the program? So that breaking can be done by using the concept of these classes. So for every similar set of something, some objects, we create a class, so that our programming will become the program modularized. We must be able to divide it into some modules, should be modularized. So for the classes we have to use different classes. Even though here we have used only one class, yes, class is for data defining as well as method defining. Data as for methods, not just data. Okay, not just the properties, for methods also. Okay now. So a class is defined by set of properties. I mean, with the class word, class for, no, class is not for just data. I'm telling you, it defines. I said that it's a blueprint. Actually, what is it? Now, an employee is defined by the set of properties and some functionality here, or some, some functionality or some action. Yeah, just to come up with your question again, Hina, please. Yeah, I mean the class defined with the class keyword. Yeah. Okay, so class defined with the keyword class. What is this for? Data defining only, not just a data. Data in the sense, this becomes data actually. People call this part as data. Okay, and this part as methods. Okay, data and methods. Clear? So a class can have data and methods. Okay, methods also, not just data. If you're calling, if you're taking everything as data, that's true, you can understand like that also. But it's a combination of, a class can have variables as well. Variables in the sense data, all the properties. People use different naming conventions. Properties, features, data, variables, member methods, they call it member variables, member methods. They use different notation. These are different naming convention, but everything is same. They call this as member. Some people call this as member variables. Not some. Most of the people call this as member variables. Member variables. And these a class are, methods are called as generally, because method with diff mean is under class with keyword object. Mm, yes. So member methods and member variables. What can be there inside a class? A class can have member variables and member methods. Now I will tell you now. Just wait. Now what I do is, here I will try to create a class with the keyword object. Object emp. I'm creating a class with the keyword objects. Simply emp. What I do is, I use the same features here, copy it and paste it here. and after this, even I will try to create the same method. It need not be so much, okay? It need not be same. Just I'm copying and reusing it. It's fine. So this is what? This is an object, right? Now see this. This program has one class. This is a class created with the keyword class, and this is the one more class created with the keyword object, and this is one more class created with the keyword object. Okay, but a program execution or an application should have a main method compulsory. There must be a class with main method. Okay, with main method. Okay, now what I do is see, observe now here. Just observe very clearly. So I'm creating one more here. E2. Something wrong here. E2.id. Yeah, fine. Now what I do is I try to create a class for EMP also. EMP. Mm, Control D. If you copy the, if you select the content and if you press Control D, everything will be copied. Okay. Now new EMP. I try to create new EMP and I call it as E3. E3 and E3 is called E3. And finally E3. That's it, guys. Okay. So this is the class employee. So how many objects we have created here for this class employee? Yeah, Hina, you have to tell me how many objects we have created for the class employee here. Employee. I'm asking about employee. This class EMPLOYE employee for this class. How many objects we have created here? One or two? Two. Okay, we have created two. This is the one, and this is another one. Okay, na? Clear? And how many objects we have created for the class EMP here? How many class we, but for both employee and EMP, we have created objects in main method only, in the main method. So how many objects we have created for employees? Two objects. E1, the one object is referred by E1 and another object is referred by E2. And here E3 is about, it is a, we are trying to create an object for the class EMP. This is the one for this EMP. Is it clear here now? Okay, we are trying to create two objects for the class employee and one object for the class EMP. Okay, na? Is it fine? Right. Now, you see this in the last, for the class EMP, when we are trying to create object, it is showing in red color. If it is showing in red color, that means that there is an error there. There is an error. If it is showing in red color, there is an error. We have to understand that is an error. So, what is that error? What is that error? Is just let make a note point. Make a note of this point here. See this now. When we create a class by using the keyword class, okay, any finite number of objects can be created externally using new keyword. Okay, use the new keyword. Any finite number of objects can be created for it. Okay, next, when we create a class with a keyword object, no objects can be created externally using new keyword. Using new keyword. Using new keyword. That's not possible. No objects can be created externally using the new keyword. Instead, it itself creates an object internally. Internally. Instead, it itself creates an object internally. Okay, that is uh, creates exactly, not in the block, exactly one object, internally. So how many objects will get created for a class? Listen to the question carefully. How many objects can be created for a class which is created by the keyword object? Get how many? Exactly one. Not less than one, not more than one, not zero. Okay, exactly one. We cannot have a class, zero, one, not less than zero, more, less than one, more than one, zero. No, we won't have exactly one object internally. Okay, that's the difference. And when we create a class by using the keyword class, we can create any finite number of objects that we want by using the keyword new. Clear, guys? This is the basic difference between object and object. So now here for this, how many objects, how many classes will be created if we use the keyword object? How many classes and how many objects? How many objects and how many classes? Yes, how many classes, guys? Only one class. How many objects for it? Infinite. For a class created with the object keyword object, how many one class will be there? How many objects can be created for that object for the class? One, exactly one. Similarly, copy this and paste it here. And for this, classes can be one or the number of objects can be one or more. But here exactly one. Exactly one. Got it? So number of classes, the class will be only one, but we can define number of classes, but generally for a class, how many objects can be created? One or more. Here, how many objects? Exactly one object. Okay. This object is called as, the object is called as companion object. That object that gets created internally. The exactly one object that whatever that gets created internally is called as companion object, and its corresponding class is called as companion class or singleton object. Beyond this, don't get confused with this naming convention. You know, the class is called as companion class or singleton objects. Singleton object in the sense a class which can have only one object. A class which can have only one object, that is called as singleton object. But we don't have singleton class, singleton object only. Okay, so which can have exactly one object. So the corresponding object is called a companion object, and the corresponding class is called as companion class. Is it okay, guys? Fine. Yeah, that's the reason now. If you see the code now, that is the reason here we got these errors. But what is that object that got created? How shall we access it? We do directly. We don't use any new operator here. No keyword, any nothing here. See this. Just replace this EA3 with EMP itself. That's it. Okay. EMP, the name of the class itself used as the name of the object. What is the name of the class here? EMP. Okay, the same name we use here. We don't create any external object externally, so we can use the same class name for creating the object and to work with that object. This is what we have to see. This is the basic difference between creation of a class by using the keyword object and by using the keyword class. Is it fine now? Now it works. Print this. Now it is going to work. Run employee data. So here we have three classes actually. Employee is there, EMP is there, and employee data is there. If you right click it, you will see only the class in which run will be shown for only the class in which main method is there. In which main method is there. Even though if you have three here, we'll see run option only for the class in which we have the main method. Okay, run employee data. Click on this. What happened? Is the execution done? Yes, it is done already. Just was hidden. Mm, clear guess now. 54, 54. We got the output. Fine now. This is how we have to write the code. We have to understand the code. Okay. Clear, guys. Any questions, Sina? Still from your side? Fine. Raviteja, from your side? Okay, fine, guys. Tomorrow we shall discuss one more concept of this. And how to define various methods, and how to access the methods, how to perform the operations. We'll try to see some different use cases. Okay. Just I will send this code also to you. Just I have to have a practice of it. Okay. Just try to practice it. Then you understand what exactly clearly that is. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time.